Hey everyone, it is winter time and it can be tough to catch bass this time of year. Today I'm going to talk about 3 different techniques to catch wintertime bass and also demonstrate a tool to help you narrow down the areas to utilize these techniques to focus on catching big bass. Stay tuned.
Shane Flint Outdoors, brought to you by Omnia Fishing. Experience the most personalized tackle shopping on earth. Also by Bent Rod Fishing. Get bent, stay bent.
Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo! What a big girl! Hey everybody, thanks for stopping back by the channel. As I said in the opening here, we're going to talk about some techniques today, 3 specific techniques and 3 lures that can help you catch a lot more bass in the wintertime, especially when the water temperature is down as cold as it is now. You know, I'm talking about from that 38, 39 degrees to the 48, 49 degrees. That's really the wintertime temperatures that we think about when we talk about wintertime fishing. That water's cold. And there's all kinds of myths about, you know, fish move fast, fish move slow. You know, I have found over the last few weeks, the bass can move pretty fast when you put something in front of them they want to eat. So we're going to talk about 3 techniques here, but what I want to talk about first is where you want to fish these techniques. And in the wintertime, what I found, and before I go too far into this, I'm going to talk about deep water fishing today. I'm not telling you you can't catch bass in the shallows. You can. There's bass in the shallows year round, but I think the preponderance of bigger fish in the wintertime move on to the vertical drop-offs in your lakes. And that's key information to know about the water you fish, is where those vertical drop-offs are. And what I like to target is areas that go from like 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 feet that drop off that 24, 26 feet, or if the water's 10 to 12 and where the drop off goes to 25, 24, whatever, into the 20s, even depending on the lake down into the 30s. So I'm looking for those steep drop offs. And I have a tool that I've been utilizing to help me locate those areas in the lake before I even leave the house. So what I want to take a minute to do is show you the tool that I have that's on my phone and on my tablet that helps me locate areas to fish before I even get out there and make me a more informed fisherman where I can target fish faster. So take a look at this tool that I've been utilizing. Okay everyone, I want to show you the tool that I've been utilizing here recently to help me locate areas that I want to fish. And in this example, we're going to be looking for those vertical drop-offs that I was talking about, that vertical areas in the lake that are in the deeper parts of the lake that the bass in the wintertime like to hold on to or like to, you know, be around and tight to. So what I'm going to look at here is my Omnia Premium Pro Fishing App here on my iPad. So I'm going to click on that real quick. It's going to come up with my information. I'm just going to click on the first lake here, which is Hunting Run Reservoir. I'm going to hit the view lake details real quick. And it comes up with all the current conditions, wind speed, temperature, barometric pressure. You can look at all the hot baits there and etc. Which is good information to have. But what I really want to look at today is the map. So I'm going to view at the map. I'm going to use the standard map. You can get a satellite version as well. And you can see there's lots of options on the maps. You can get water clarity, water temperature, navionics, which comes out in the next week or 2. Bottom hardness, which we're going to include. And then there's also, you can put the weather on there if you're out there with storms, lightning, air temperature, precip, wind. Lots of, just tons of information on all the lakes. That's pretty much across the United States. So I've selected what I want to. Let's go ahead and take a look at the map. And what I have here, and I'll just go ahead and put this in the aerial view, is Hunting Run Reservoir. And what I'm looking for is those areas within the lake that have very steep drop-offs, going from that 8, 10, 12 feet down to 28, 30 feet. And I know this lake pretty well. So I'm going to go ahead and blow up here. And there's one place in particular I know really well that holds fish. And this is a great example of what I'm talking about right here. So I'm looking for these tight lines. These tight lines meaning the tighter they are, the steeper the bank, the drop off is. You can see over here, these are not so tight together, but it goes down deep. This goes down deep very, very quick. And that's the areas that bass like to tend to hang out at. It goes from 10, 12 down to that 24 feet, especially right here. This area right here is a really good area, dropping off down to that deep water. Those are the areas that I was targeting in the last few weeks with the techniques that I'm going to talk about to catch bass. Now, blow out a little bit. You can see here, here's the creek channel in the lake. Goes right down the middle of the lake. Probably a little too deep, maybe not. I'd probably fish it really good in the summertime. But there's some other areas here. Here's another spot that I know really well. It doesn't drop off too deep, but that's a pretty good spot as well. So I'm looking for, now you notice here's an area, but it's in a very mucky. Yellow meaning mud, the red meaning rock, which I like to fish the rockier bottoms in the wintertime because those areas heat up faster. Here's a great example of an area that I would fish. Tight lines coming out of the 8 to 10 feet rocky bottom. There's even a hump here around these tight lines, meaning those steep drop-offs. And that's a very great example. And these are the things I'd be looking for if I were you guys going out to fish in the wintertime, especially when that water temperature is 40, 45, 42, 39. The bass will be down off these steep areas. Again, this is the creek channel here. So you don't have to just look at this in the aerial aspect. You can actually look at this from a 3D aspect too. Lots of ways to look at the map here. You can get a good idea. You can blow up and you can see the drop-offs and things of that nature and how steep they are. These are the places that I'd be fishing. So this tool helps you figure out where you want to start fishing. Helps you eliminate dead water and get you a good idea of where you want to get out there and start fishing and targeting the bass on. Even if you have electronics already on your boat, it still helps you. You can do this from your smartphone at home before you even get out on the water or from your tablet. It helps you eliminate dead water and helps you be a more prepared fisherman to get out there and not waste time and target those bass and catch more fish instead of searching for fish from a day-to-day aspect. So this is a Premium Pro app. You can go to omniafishing.com. I think it's $49.99 to purchase this app. It gets all the lakes within the United States. You get a 7 free day trial. Make sure your lakes are on there. And in the very near future, there'll be a discount code for Shameful Outdoor Anglers to get 20% off to purchase that app. So be looking out for that. And again, just a great tool to have in your arsenal to help you become a more informed fisherman and catch more fish. So hey folks, that's just a great tool to utilize, the Omnia Pro app. Get it if you at Omnia Fishing. And like I said, a discount code is going to come out in the very near future for all the Shameful Outdoor Anglers. So let's get into the techniques. Now that you have a tool to help you locate those vertical drop-offs that's in your lake where bass tend to hang out in the winter, I'm going to talk about the 3 techniques that I've been utilizing. One you've seen me utilize in the summer and in the fall, and it still holds true in the winter. So I got an illustration here, and this is when I was utilizing this. In this illustration, you can see I've got a good vertical drop-off that I found, and the bass are hanging out at the top of the point of that drop-off. I'm calling that, you know, where it curves down to the drop-off, the point of the drop-off. That's where the fish were hanging out. And I wasn't fishing from the deep and casting up. I had my boat closer to the bank in the 8 to 10, 12 foot range, casting past the drop-off and swimming the good old swim jig. Not the swim jig, I'm talking about the hair jig here, the big hair jig that I've used in the summer and in the fall, and still utilizing it in the winter, and it's so effective. And what I did is I slowly swam it up into where those fish were, and I wasn't doing the big jerk like I do in the summertime. I was just swimming it slow. Kind of like you'd swim a jig, a regular jig, but just a little bit more pronounced. And as soon as I'd get to that, the drop-off point there where the fish were hanging out, they would hammer it. So here's an example of a catch of a real nice one that I got utilizing this technique with the hair jig. Take a look.
Feels like an easy bass. Feels like a big bass. See what we got here. Oh yeah. Yeah. That's a nice wintertime bass right there. About a good 4.5 pounds. Jig come up on the hair jig. Nice bass.
Okay folks, that's a good example of a good 4.5 pounder there I caught on the hair jig. Now I just want to apologize up front. I caught a lot more other fish that I'm going to talk about on these techniques, but I had a little camera issue. I had this sun, had a what they call a lens flare in my lens. Here's an example of that. Me reeling in a big fish. You can see that big spot right in the middle. Sorry, the footage is just not worthy of showing you guys, but we can talk about the technique and I can talk about the fish that I caught there. It's all on video, just a big blur though. So the next technique, and I'll show you the illustration, I utilize when the fish were not suspended off the drop off, but I couldn't hardly see them. They were right on the bottom. And you guys know I utilize forward-facing sonar, live scope, and I didn't even see these fish. And the technique I was using, I was reminded by my friend here, Brian Hunter, or we call him Brian Green, we call him the Bass Hunter here. He's like, hey Shane, remember, rip those baits around off the point to get a reaction strike. And I utilized that technique, but I wasn't utilizing it that much until here recently. He reminded me of it. And what I did was I took my boat out off the drop off, threw up into the shallow water, and I threw a big swim bait or a wake bait, or whatever you want to call this. This is the 6 cent trace. I have it in the 6-inch model. This is the slow sinking model, but this is the actual bait I was using. It's a fast sinking model. Sinks about 1.5 feet, 2 feet a second. And what I did is I threw it up in that 8 to 10, 12 foot water, 6 foot water, slowly reeled it in, give it a little jerk every once in a while, tried to keep it away from the pickerel. And then as I got closer to that drop off, I would rip it. I would just reel it real fast and then pause it. And as soon as I got over those, right about the drop off point, and I'd reel it real fast and pause it, those bass would rise up off the bottom and they would slam this bait. So I would swim it real fast, pause it, right off that drop off, and they would just come up, just like sharks out of nowhere, and they would slam this swim bait. So you don't have to use this one. This is just the bait that I was using, 6 cent one. You can utilize any one that you want, but you want one that sinks pretty quickly, that will stay down there, that you can keep in that 16, 18, 20 foot of water, but you just want to rip it. And you think the bass don't move that fast in the wintertime. When they see something like this big swim bait that they want to bite, they will move fast and grab it, I promise you. I've got a nice 5-pounder, nice 6-pounder on this swim bait and a couple others. Really good technique. And slowly swim it through the shallower water, just twitch it a little bit. But as soon as I got towards that drop off, I just rip it and they would come right up and they would slam it. So really good technique. It worked really well over the last few weeks. So the third lure that I'm going to talk about, and the technique, is a lure that I haven't ever shown before, and it's something that I just discovered in the last few months because I was looking for a new blade bait to utilize this winter. The typical blade bait's just a chunk of metal with a lead bottom, lead belly, with your hooks hanging off of it. You can drop it and jig it. But I found a new blade bait that I really like. But before I talk about the blade bait, let me show you the example of where the fish were here in this illustration that got me to use this technique. So here in this illustration, you see the bass are still at that 20 to 25 foot area, but there's a bait ball or a bunch of bait fish above them suspended at 10, 12, 14, 16, 18 feet. And the bass were hanging out below them. They'd reach up and get a quick meal every once in a while. So what I did is I took my blade bait, and this was a new blade bait that I'm using. It's called the Vibrato. It's the Vibrato by Berkley. And here's what it looks like in a package, the Vibrato. Definitely a different blade bait. You can see the hooks are on each end. It has a different falling action. This is the 1/2 ounce version. And what I would do is I would find the bait ball, and I see the bass below it. I'd throw this out there, let it fall below the bass, and then rip it up. Rip it up through the school of bass. And typically when it would come by them, they would grab it. So it'd come by and they'd just jump on it. So this Vibrato jig, the vibrating jig, is a really, really good vibrating blade bait, I should say, not just a jig, but it really, really worked. The action is different than your standard blade bait because it's not, it does have a little bit of weight on the bottom, but it's, evenly weighted across. So it gives it a good vibration and it falls more evenly downward through the water. So really good, and the hooks are really sticky. You can see the hooks are, I'm getting my fingers hooked up. The hooks are on each end of the blade bait versus on the bottom. So really good bait, very impressed. I wouldn't tell you guys if I wasn't successful with it, but it really worked when those bass were out chasing the bait fish into the off those drop-offs there. It really worked for me. Didn't catch any giants with it, but I caught a lot of 2 and 3 pounders with it. Really good technique to catch fish. So hey guys, there's 3 baits that I've been utilizing the first few weeks of winter here, the last few weeks of winter. The water temperature for me was anywhere from 47 to 41. and these techniques were really working. It's still, I'm not catching a lot of fish, but I'm catching some quality fish. It is a lot slower in the wintertime. It's, you know, you got to kind of bundle up and get out there and grind it out a little bit. But I hope these techniques, you can take some information, especially the tools that I've demonstrated for you to help locate places to fish, along with the baits, and you can have some success this winter fishing wherever you're at within the United States. So hey everybody, thanks again for stopping by, and until next time, tight lines and good luck fishing.